Hey guys, Melissa here. In this video, I'm going to make a couple decorative clasps, including beads and some twisted wire. I'll be making an S-shaped clasp and a hook clasp. So if you want to see how I did these, just stick around and I'll show you how. So I grabbed some spacer beads here. I'm going to demonstrate today with 16 gauge wire. I already twisted some wires, so I took about 2 feet of 22 gauge wire and twisted it up already. For that I used my drill. It's really simple. All you need to do is take a nice long length of wire, fold it in half, and then twist it. The drill makes it really fast and easy. So I've got that all ready. Just so you know, I have a list of my tools and materials all down in the description. So if you want to see what exactly I'm using, you can check that out. Let me make the S clasp first and take my 16 gauge wire. Use my nylon jaws, kind of straighten it out, get the kinks out. I think about 3 inches should suffice. Of course, the gauge wire you use and how much wire, how big your clasp is, all depends on what your project is. I'm just making this one nice and thick so I can demonstrate. All right, so we got 3 inches of wire. And I think with the ends, I'm gonna spiral the ends of my wire here, but first I wanna kind of flatten them. To do that, I use my round nose pliers, kind of gently flatten the wire. Careful because it will get sharp. I'm going to do that to both sides. I do this until I get a nice taper. And next I'm going to make a little spiral. You might find that there's little bits of metal that come off when you taper it like that. The other side, I'm gonna curl the opposite direction. Before I do that though, I'm gonna put my bead on. And then make your swirl. That's what this whole video is about, right? Adding beads to your clasps. Next, I'm going to add my twisted wire. I'm starting like an inch away from the end, so it's easier to twist on. I'm going to get started by twisting up towards this swirl. I'm going to start twisting until my bead reaches the halfway point. So you can measure out your halfway point or you can just eyeball it. So our clasp is 2.5 inches, so the halfway point is about 1.25 inches. Couple more turns. That looks good. Give that a snip and smush that down. And do the same with the other side. Get it started. Snug that up. Get a nice grip on it and start twisting away. Good thing to know is to make sure you make yourself enough twisted wire. See here, I twisted about 2 feet of wire to make like a foot of twisted wire. This looks to be just enough. I'm going to snip off this excess. Now I just have to make our curves. Usually I use my bail makers. This clasp is a little big, so I'm going to use a Sharpie to make my curve here. Maybe not quite so big. Yeah, so make your curves, curve them around something. You can go back and shape your S the way you want it to look. This one, of course, is really thick, so it's going to take some coaxing to get it to curve the way you want to. At the bead, bend it back a little bit to get that S curve in there. Straighten them out. There you go. Next, I'm going to make a hook clasp. Basically the same thing, but without the S. I'm still going to cut myself another 3-inch piece. Made myself another 12-inch piece of twisted wire, 22 gauge. I'm going to use 16 gauge wire for my clasp again. And just like the S clasp, I'm going to smoosh the end of my wire here before I make my swirl. Just kind of smoothing it and pulling on it, tapering it off. Then I'll make a nice tight swirl. Once again, I'm getting little shards of metal coming off. Use my chain nose to tighten it up a little bit. This time I think I'm gonna make my curve first. So I can get the size and shape that I want. Tighten this guy up a little bit. And then determine where I'd want the bead. Well, let's start twisting. Start an inch away from the end or so you can get it started. Get a good grip on it and start twisting. I think that's good. Gotta get our bead on. Snip that off, press it down. Throw your bead on. Gonna add a little more too underneath. That looks like enough. I'm just gonna snip it. Snip and snip. Press it down. Give it some shape. We're just gonna make our loop. I just make a 90-degree bend. Decide how big you want your loop. Bring it around your round nose pliers and snip. Make sure everybody's straight. And lastly, we need eyes. I had this leftover guy from a previous project. I had too many, so this would go perfectly with the S clasp. So it's a little horseshoe link with twisted wire, so that will look good with this guy. Or you can make a beaded eye. I hear Sandhill Crane. Be on the safe side, I'm going to cut off 2 inches, probably overkill. So since this is 16 gauge, I think simple loops would be all right. Anything smaller, I would make a wrapped loop, but let's see how simple goes. It might be too small. I'm gonna make the actual eye a little bit bigger. to accommodate fat clasp. Maybe a little bit smaller. I lost my bead. Thank goodness I have another one just sitting here. So I have one side that's big, the other side I'm gonna make smaller. Now, this is pretty tough. I think the 16 gauge will be okay. Alright, so here's how they turned out. I went ahead and oxidized them so they would blend into the bead better. And I just took some steel wool and shined them up again. And now they're all ready to incorporate into any projects. Alright, so that's it for me, guys. If you like this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment, let me know what you thought. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.